This happened in Manchester, England in 2022, actually, bro. It's about this girl and her boyfriend. Her name was Shay Groves. It was this guy named Frankie, and I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. But long story short, bro, they were dating for like a cool minute. You know, they really hit it off. The relationship seemed really cool in the beginning. Eventually, she ends up going on his phone this one day because he falls asleep. She checks his phone. And you already know where this is going, bro.
Yeah.
It's not what you expect.
He was cheating on her?
She sees that he's texting another girl. She starts looking at the messages and actually reading them. And she finds out that her boyfriend Frankie was texting a 13-year-old girl.
Wow.
After she sees the messages between him and the 13-year-old girl, she goes to the kitchen, grabs a knife, and stabs 22 times in the chest and his neck. She kills Brett inside the house. She calls her homegirl right after the fact and FaceTimes her.
Tells her.
And shows her the body. She's like, yes, like, bro, she's laughing and shit. She's like, yeah, like, I just killed Frankie. So she's like, let me call you back.
Call the police.
Calls the police on her ass. Police go to her house, end up bringing her in. And while they have her in, they're checking through her house, bro. She had pictures of serial killers in her bedroom. Like, she had pictures of Jeffrey Dahmer. Posters of Jeffrey Dahmer, the Night Stalker, fucking John Wayne Gacy.
Holy fuck.
And shit like that. Yes, bro. She was out of her mind.
The Anguished Man, an oil painting in Cumbria, England, that is said to be cursed. Owner Sean Robinson got it from his grandmother, who warned him that the paints used in this project were mixed with the artist's own blood. Sean claims it is haunted.
I'm going to record it for approximately 8 hours, see if we can catch some of the activity. As you can see, some of the paint is starting to crack. It's still on its original wooden frame. So I'm going to set up the recording equipment and leave it for approximately 8 hours, and I'll leave the light on.
To this day, the artist is unknown, but rumor says he took his life as soon as the painting was done.
Creepy facts you didn't know about. United Kingdom. Between 1348 and 1665, there were 16 outbreaks of the plague in London. The worst plague hit London between 1348 to 49, and a third of London's inhabitants either died or fled. As there were so many fatalities during the plague, mass graves had to be built around London. One of the most notorious plague pits is underneath Aldgate Station, where more than 1,000 bodies are buried. During W2, the Bethnal Green Station was being used as an air raid shelter. One evening in 1943, as people ran for shelter after hearing air raid sirens, a woman and child stumbled on the steps, causing hundreds of people to trip and fall down the stairs on top of each other. 173 people were crushed to death, including 62 children. Today, staff working late at the station say they can hear the sound of children crying and screaming.
This is 38-year-old Joyce Vincent, and her body wouldn't be discovered until almost 3 years later. Joyce was under public housing owned by the Metropolitan Housing Trust in the UK. When housing officials noticed that Joyce was behind on her part in rent for 2 years, they planned to repossess her flat. On January 25, 2006, her body was found sitting in a stiffening sitting position while clutching a shopping bag. Since her body was badly decomposed, Joyce could only be identified through dental records. Her TV was still playing, there was a pile of dishes in the sink, and there were Christmas presents that were not sent out yet. Investigators also found expired food in her fridge from 2003, and it's been stated that she died sometime in December 2003. The question that everyone wants to know is that how can something like this go unnoticed for years? Also, what was her cause of death? Joyce was known as a beautiful, loving, and sociable person. However, around the time of her death, she didn't have much contact with family and friends, and her neighbors knew very little of her. Neighbors informed the police of a smell coming from around her apartment, but they thought that it was just the waste bins. Before she died, Joyce showed some strange behavior, like quitting her job for reasons unknown. As I mentioned earlier, Joyce didn't have much contact, probably no contact at all, with her family and friends. Joyce was a victim of domestic violence, and she once lived in a shelter for victims of domestic violence. Investigators didn't find any signs of foul play. Her door was locked, and there was no signs of a break-in either. Investigators also looked at her medical history and learned that she suffered from severe asthma and chronic stomach pains. So, since there is no signs of foul play, they believe that she may have died from a possible asthma attack or complications due to her stomach pains. To this day, Joyce's death remains one of the strangest cases in the UK. Alright y'all, what do you guys think about this case? And I'll be back to do more videos for you guys.
Another scary story. Make sure you're following me for more scary stories. So this one comes from the UK, North Sheffield, and this area is called Stocksbridge Bypass. It's also known as Killer Road. There's been over 25 deaths here. It's just like a narrow road that goes for a couple miles, I believe 6 miles, and on the sides is just hills and like it's a countryside, so super deserted. So Amira and her family were headed to her aunt's birthday in Sheffield, who is turning 40. Her mom's siblings also wanted to join her mom and the family to surprise the aunt. They were going for the first time. So once they got there, they had a great evening and they left the aunt's house around 11 p.m. My aunt and my uncle had driven in their own separate cars with their own families. So they were going to follow us as our car was finicky. It used to break down and everything. So that's why they for sure was going to follow us all the way home as they live near our house. So they had stopped the cars for patrol and we waited for them. As I looked down and looked back up, they were gone. They had completely disappeared, which was super weird as they were supposed to follow us all the way home. That was the plan. So my mom decided to put in our address in Google Maps. We ended up at Stocksbridge Bypass. It's supposed to be haunted. I didn't know anything about it. I was just listening to my music and my mom was focusing on the Google Maps directions. She realized where we had ended up and was worried, but didn't want to tell me or my siblings in case we freaked out. So she started praying in the car and blew on us like that. It was so scary. We were all alone. There was no cars driving in any lanes. It was just miles and miles of highway. There was no turning lanes, no streets going off to the sides, as it was just like a countryside with hills. And it felt like we were driving for ages. Then all of a sudden, a few cars came out of nowhere and they were heading towards Sheffield as we were going out. Then there was all of a sudden 2 cars behind us now, which seemed like they were following us for ages and ages. And then all of a sudden one disappeared. We didn't know where it went. And at that time, I didn't notice much, but my mom told me this after as I was just listening to my music. And then the other car that was behind us for ages, all of a sudden disappeared as well, and it was completely gone. And how could that be, as there was no way anyone could have turned off to any side streets, as there was no lanes or left or right turning lanes. Then we saw some sort of animal run across the road. It was really weird because where did it come from? There was just hills and grass on each side. It could have come from anywhere, really. Don't they live there? I don't know. We thought it could be a rabbit, but it was too big to be a rabbit, so maybe it was a hare. But we weren't going to get out of our car to check because that'd be insanely stupid. Anyways, we drove some more till I saw something in the corner of my eye. It seemed like a crooked figure with a black cape and a hood, and it was running on the left side of the path. It kept going. I didn't think much of it. My brain literally told me, do not look back. don't turn. I had a really bad, deep gut feeling, so I stuck with listening to my music. I think that was a good choice. I didn't tell my mom in case she got worried. We finally ended up in a little town with normal roads in what felt like forever, and we finally felt safe. And even my mom said, okay, that was creepy. I finally feel safe here in this town. The next morning, my mom spoke to me and was saying, I saw something really weird last night. And I said, oh, me too. Was it that old figure with the dark cloak who's hunched back? And she said, yes. She said, but she saw it on her side and it was walking so slowly and just piercing through her, looking at her. And then I was like, but I was so surprised he was on my side and he was running really fast. It was definitely a djinn. We had figured that out. This place is known, Stocksbridge Bypass is known to have super, super freaky stories. So yes, I don't recommend going there, but it sucks if you have to drive there in the middle of the night. Anyway, send me more stories, guys. Another scary story, and this one comes from the UK. So this happened in October 2017. Me and my friends, we were out at a park which had fields going out endlessly for miles and miles. In order to take a shortcut to reach the mall, which they call retail center, we had to go through the fields. Two of my friends went to get my other mates who said they were coming by the entrance of this park. So in total, we would have been 10 people. Since it was cold, me and my other buddy decided to get some chai tea, which was in this retail park. While walking, we saw a man in the middle of the fields in front of us with a dog leash, but no dog to be seen. My friend got scared and said, Jel, let's go. I said, no, maybe he'll need help or he needs some sort of help. I went and touched this man's arm, which was cold and white as F. We couldn't see his face as it was in the middle of nowhere and it was super dark. We had a torchlight on our phone, and when we put it in his face to see him, he had a straight face, but it was too dark and discolored. And then both of our phones died, even though my phone was connected to a power bank. My friend grabbed me and started running back. When I caught up to my friend, he was shocked and stunned as if he saw something. When I asked him what it was, he said, the guy's directly behind the path to get back. He's standing right there on that path. That night the moonlight was bright and so we could see something shifting, to which I started reading the Ayatul Kursi and blew on myself and my friend. We had two options, either to run past him or go back the way we had originally saw him, which was in the direction of the retail park. We ran towards the retail park and got someone's phone and called my other mates. When we told them what happened, they thought it was a prank. So me and my mate took the long route, and for a few days we both were so ill, but we thought nothing of it. A few days later, our mates got to that park before us, in which one of them saw the man asking for a ride because his dog had ran off. My mate was on his motorbike driving and he saw the man and his feet were backwards. At that point, my friend lost control of his motorbike and fell off of it, but then he still ran for his life, which later he got hit by a car and broke his ribs. Still, to this day, people have heard a man at this park at night asking for a ride because he's lost his dog and he has a sinister laugh. Safe to say, I haven't been there since. Wow. Send me more, guys. These are so good.
4 haunted forests in the UK. Let's go. 1. Daring Woods, England. Aptly coined Screaming Woods, tourists report of blood-curdling screaming coming from the depths of the woodland. Many people link the screams to the grisly discovery of 20 bodies in 1948. 2. Pembrey Woods, Wales. Just outside of my hometown in Llanelli, Pembrey Woods was a key site during World War I and II. Legend also has it that the Goir Abwelli Bach, or people of the Little Hatches, would lure ships to rocks with their lanterns, ultimately wrecking the ships before pillaging and killing the survivors. People have reported ghostly figures roaming the forest, dunes and beach, as well as on the shores, including pirate ships. 3. Ballybally Forest, Northern Ireland. It's said that this was an old druid site where some rituals and even sacrifices took place according to legend. Some frightening occurrences have included horrible sounds coming from the woods, as well as shadowy hooded figures and blood-stained trees. 4. The Forest of Rothiemurchus, Scotland. This spooky forest is the resting place of Seathmore, a famous warrior who lived in the 14th century. Legend has it that if you venture too deep into the woods, you'll be challenged by his spirit. Stand your ground and he leaves you alone. Run, however, and it's not good news. Diolch yn fawr iawn am wylio. Thank you very much for watching. If you did like this, please comment, like, share, and of course, follow. Diolch yn fawr.
Time for a scary urban legend. Let's go. Now this comes all the way from the UK. This legend is called the Faceless Woman. Now this is located in Barking in London, one of the boroughs there. There you can find Beacon Tree Station, the station behind me right now. This is home to the Faceless Woman. The most famous sighting of her happened in 1992. He reports during one night shift, the handle of his office door started to rattle. Outside of the platform stood a woman. She had very blonde hair, a pale dress, and she only stared at the distance. The supervisor approached her, and when he reached out, he realized that she had no face. Just darkness where there should be one. Local ghost hunters say that she's victim of a train crash that happened there. Like and follow for more.
3 scariest British folklore creatures. Number 1, the Ben Nia. These creatures are said to be the spirits of women who died giving birth. They can apparently be seen around deserted streams washing the bloody clothes of a person who is going to die. Apparently, if asked politely, she will even tell you the name of the person who is going to die. Number 2, Will-o'-the-Wisp. This is a softly glowing light that appears in marshes or swamps at dusk or early on in the night. They are often found on remote paths in the middle of nowhere, and depending on how it's treated will either lead a traveller to safety or will get the traveller completely lost, and then it will go out after leading them to their doom. Number 3, Nixie. These are shapeshifters that live in the water. They appear to lonely travellers as beautiful young women to lure male travellers close to them. The male traveller is then led into the lake the Nixie lives in, only to be dragged underwater and drowned.
In the 1830s and 40s, there were reports about a terrifying creature attacking the people of London. If you like stories about strange and spooky folklore, this one's for you. According to the stories, the attacker was said to be a tall, thin man with a terrifying demonic appearance. He wore a black suit and a cape and had long, sharp claws on his fingers. He was said to be able to jump huge distances over walls and buildings really easily, and was often seen leaping across rooftops. Not only did he attack those in London, he was also seen in other parts of England too, including Liverpool, Birmingham and Sheffield. There are so many reports of this beast attacking people over this period, but most of the victims were young women. Some of the most famous assaults include those on Mary Stevens, Lucy Scales and Jane Alsop. The first reported sighting was by young Mary, who claimed that she'd been molested by a figure with glowing eyes. She was rescued by some nearby workers who heard her screaming, but the attacker managed to escape by leaping over a wall. Over the next few years, several more reports of similar attacks were made, and the legend of Spring Hill Jack began to take shape. Lucy Scales and her sister were returning home from a visit when they encountered Spring Hill Jack on a deserted street. According to reports, he spewed blue flames into Lucy's face, causing her to faint. When she regained consciousness, her sister helped her home, but Lucy remained traumatised by the incident for the rest of her life. Jane Alsop was attacked in her home by a man who claimed to be a police officer. When she opened the door to him, he threw a cloak over her head and then began tearing at her clothes with his sharp claws. Jane's sister and brother-in-law heard her screaming and came to her rescue, but the attacker, he was nowhere to be seen. These attacks and others like them led to widespread panic in London at the time, as people were afraid to go out at night for fear of encountering Spring-Heeled Jack. For more freaky folklore, listen to the Whispering Woods podcast, wherever you listen.
Yes, well, England has Jenny Greenteeth, who is even creepier than the Ben Nye. Whereas the Ben Nye doesn't mean any sort of outward harm, she's just kind of doing a job, if you will, Jenny Greenteeth is out to kill you. She is a kind of a type of Grindylow, which are prominently found in Yorkshire and northern England. These creatures that live in bogs and bodies of water with long, sinewy arms that like to drown and drag children and elderly people to the bottom of lakes and ponds and, you know, kill them. She is horrifying, means you absolutely no goodwill. Please stay away from her. And actually the name Jenny Greenteeth is now used to describe the certain green algae that lies on top of ponds, which kind of makes them seem a little bit more safer than they actually are. So children can actually fall into them and hurt themselves. So, you know, we've got the creepy connotations there.